And the centerpiece of a 12 race card at Belmont Park on Saturday afternoon is the Grade 1 Belmont Derby, which is going to go as race number 10 post time at 5:49 Eastern time. Nick Tammaro here to take a look at this 11 horse field, the Belmont Derby. And I'm joined by James Scully, the one and only James Scully. Who are we on in the Belmont Derby?
Nick, I think it's a terrific field. I think the American 3-year-old turf division is looks pretty strong this year, but I can't go against number 11, the Foxes, shipping in from England off of a 5th place effort in the Epsom Derby to August Rodin. I mean, that was a really tough race. That's a very nice colt that for Coolmore and O'Brien that beat him. And the Foxes, that race was a mile and a half, and I think it might have been just a little bit too long for him, Nick. I think the mile and a quarter distance will hit him right between the eyes. He really recorded a nice win 2 starts back in that Dante Stakes, an important prep for the Epsom Derby. And he beat a nice horse in there. White Birch came right back to finish 3rd in the Epsom Derby to August Rodin. This is a colt. He had won 3 of 4 starts before the last race at a mile and a half. I think he'll relish the cutback to a mile and a quarter. A little bit of a concern with Andrew Balding. I went back and looked at his record. It looks like his last win in North America came at Woodbine in 2017, and it doesn't have a U.S. winner. All his North American wins might be at Woodbine. But he has been shipping horses over for the Breeders' Cup. He's got 3 Breeders' Cup starters the last 4 years, and this looks by far the most formidable runner he's ever had stateside, and he's going to be tough to beat with Osen Murphy coming in to ride the Foxes.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was shocked to see that he actually trained the favorite in the 2020 Breeders' Cup Mile, a horse named Kamiko, who went off 5.3 to 1 in a race, of course, won by Order of Australia in Aidan O'Brien trifecta.
Huge upset.
One of the biggest upsets in Breeders' Cup history, right? And one of the craziest results you'll ever find, given the way that everything paid there. I don't have much to add to what you said about the Foxes. He's my pick as well. And I think when you're talking about running lines, you're talking about competition. This is not only a formidable horse that has some wins that you can point to and say, okay, if he runs that, they're all in trouble. But he's been running against the best 3-year-old out there. And King of Steel, who was second last time out in the Epsom Derby, came right back to win the King Edward at Royal Ascot. So tough to argue with anything there. My only worry with him is that, and I mentioned this in our Belmont Oaks preview, when they take the rails down at Belmont, the inside has a tendency to be very, very fast. And he's breaking from the 11. I'm not worried about him going wide into the turn, but I am a little bit worried about him losing some ground. I almost wonder if the approach might be to really let him drop out and let the race get away from him a little bit, because there are a couple of speed horses, I think, that can mix it up early. One of those speed horses is the winner of the local prep for this race, the Pennine Ridge. That's the 8 Kalik, who has really taken off, James, as in his 3-year-old season. Now 3 for 3 for Chad Brown. And after they tried new tactics 2 back in the allowance win, they put those same into play in the Pennine Ridge, and he wired the field. You think there's a chance he could take this group all the way?
I don't think it's impossible. I'm a little bit dubious. I'm wondering if you've got this Wizard of Westwood shipping in from the West Coast, and looks like he could show speed with John Velasquez to his inside, make his task more difficult. But one thing about it is, if he's sitting in up close second, he could still run his race theoretically. So you got to respect Kalik for coming off that race. I thought that was a dynamite field. Obviously, Farbridge. He's a horse. He's run second in back-to-back starts for Pletcher, but looks like a really good son of English Channel. And Silver Knot was 3rd in there. He came back, ran such a big race at Keeneland last fall in the juvenile turf, and came up a little bit short at short odds last time. But to me, the added ground could be, could help him perhaps get a little bit of a better trip today.
Farbridge is a horse who, as you mentioned, has finished second in consecutive starts against Graded Stake Company since joining the barn of Todd Pletcher. The issue that I have with Farbridge is that he is clearly a horse who's more comfortable running along the inside. And it's difficult to work out those trips every time going long on the turf. And I think the misconception that was born of the ride that he got last time out was that Joel Rosario didn't ride him well. I think it was just that Joel Rosario was trying to get him to a comfortable spot, and he's more comfortable running along the inside. I thought he was done on the far turn. All of a sudden, he's running again down on the inside. Is he just a horse that you think is a little too quirky for your money, or is he one who's maybe sitting on a breakout performance?
He is a little too quirky for my money. I thought he didn't, in American turf, I might be willing to give him an excuse, but I was a little upset that he came up short in that spot. And then last time you mentioned it, I mean, he didn't have his head tied on straight. And, you're not going to run outside horses, but you'll run inside of them. That was a negative for me, his performance in that race. I still believe that he has like a lot of potential in the future, but I don't think he's 100% all there mentally yet. Definitely want to, could see him finishing well for a small piece, but no way I'd use him for the win in multi-race plays, Nick.
I've won quite a few more races, quite a few less races as a trainer than Christophe Clement and Todd Pletcher. I'm shocked this horse hasn't worn blinkers yet, given that he seems to run in spots and only runs when he's along the inside. We mentioned in the Belmont Oaks preview the shippers from overseas. There is only one in here, but sort of the other new face kind of oddball in here is the 10 redistricting, who was a tremendously impressive debut winner for trainer Chad Brown back on June 3rd. Boy, James, a maiden win at 1 mile and a 16 to 1 1/4 mile grade 1. You got to think that Chad likes this horse quite a bit.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I thought that maiden win was absolutely sensational, Nick. I made the point at the time. I mean, that sort of reminded me of Newspaper of Record when she broke her maiden. I mean, you knew she had like seemingly star quality written all over at the time. And it looks like to me the same thing with redistricting. Now we're shooting this before Friday's post time. The runner-up in that race, Fly Rights, entered in a maiden special weight on the turf Friday. So we'll get a little bit of a feel of that company. But that looked like a solid field to me, and redistricting couldn't have been more impressive. He didn't really get even on track until, into the stretch, and definitely a candidate for further improvement. He's just running into head first into such a tough field in this spot. But I'd use him in my top 3 for sure, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, as a matter of principle, you want to demand a decent price on these kind of horses. But on David Aragona's morning line, he's 8 to 1. I don't really know if that's all that bad, for a horse that clearly does have a lot of talent and a great deal of upside. You mentioned Wizard of Westwood, who won the Cinema at Santa Anita. In his last start, he looks like a pace factor at the very least. Silver Knot was third as the 3-2 favorite in the aforementioned Pennine Ridge. He's another horse who looks like he's more comfortable racing along the inside, and he did kind of come to life a little bit along the rail before kind of coming up a little bit short. I wonder, James, if the public might now have had enough of Silver Knot, because he did run third best at best last time out, and I don't know if he really merits to get significantly better with another furlong.
Yeah, and another one too. Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit like this. I thought that third get beaten a length looks a little bit better on paper than it actually was. He was never like a serious threat. Another one that I'd look at for the perhaps like a minor award in here is that Web Slinger. Just I respect how he's come along for Mark Casse in his last 2 starts. Granted, he's stepping up into this grade 1 position, but he's a colt that or gelding that figures to be running late in this spot, could perhaps figure into the vertical exotics.
The winner of the American Turf on the Kentucky Derby undercard, and his connections were smart. Obviously, with him being a gelding, as you said, there was no point in sending him to New York to knock heads with the likes of Far Bridge and Silver Knot and Kalick when you could run for 225 at home, and he ended up winning that race. I guess and maybe I'm splitting hairs. Maybe I'm being a little overly critical of him. I thought he could have looked a little bit better in the Audubon. I thought he ran well. He got his job done, but there's a moment coming off the turn when he was about to assume command, and you thought, wow, he's going to draw off and win this race for fun. And he never really had that extra gear. I wonder, and I think he's a horse with a lot of talent. I wonder if he might be a little bit better at 1 mile to 1 mile and a 16th when he can be held up and make that one run. The 1.25 miles can get a little demanding for those types. One other one to mention is the 2 Boppy O, who comes in off a win in the Jersey Derby, and he beat a highly regarded colt in there named Talk of the Nation, who was going to be one of the choices in the American Turf before he got scratched. Boppy O unleashed a really strong late bid, maybe a long shot to get a piece of this.
Yeah, maybe, and you'll get an opportunity to see Talk of the Nation in Friday's Manila Stakes as well. So that's. I thought Talk of the Nation was a little bit rank in that race, but definitely Bobby O put it together to run by him. That wasn't easy, you would think. So he's moving forward in a sense for Casse.
Absolutely. Well, that's an extended look at this bulky field in the Belmont Derby, a tremendous betting race, 11 horses slated to go again in race number 10 on that 12 race card. James, thanks so much. We'll both be pulling for the Foxes.
Oh, we will be, Nick. All the best this weekend to you. And
Big
make sure you get involved in TwinSpires. We got some great promotions, lots of stakes action this weekend. TwinSpires.com. Check out the offers and make sure you opt in.
And rumor has it there's a big meet getting started a week from Thursday. I'm talking about Colonial Downs, of course, which is available on TwinSpires.com. Saratoga as well, getting started on July 13th. Make sure you're playing along with all of us. That's my good CDI action for the day. Until next time, best of luck.